Hi everyone, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another wonderful, silly video. In this one, I am going to talk about, well, you already read the title, so you know what this is going to be about. I'm going to tell the full story of getting rid of my cassette collection back in the day. I know I've talked at length in some videos about, you know, previously owning a lot of cassettes. I had, when I got rid of my collection, um, I think I had close to 200 tapes. I'm not sure, honestly, exactly how many tapes I had because, well, I got rid of the collection. I started, collecting music in 1989 fairly extensively, and cassettes were just the more common format in '89. Yeah, CDs of course existed, but they weren't nearly as common as cassettes were at the time. Cassettes were absolutely the dominant music media. Vinyl was still huge as well, but I didn't really collect vinyl. I started with tapes, so I had quite the tape collection. So I started collecting CDs in, it was either 92 or 93, to be completely honest. I'm not sure the exact year I started collecting CDs, but I know it was around 92/93, right? Now, the funny thing is, even after I started buying CDs, I still bought tapes as well. I would buy either format, right? Um, so for a while, I would buy tapes or CDs, depending on just a number of factors. Honestly, just whatever I felt like doing. I think probably a lot of it came down to cost. If I found a CD that I wanted that was affordable, I would get the CD, but sometimes I would get the tape just because it cost less. But let's fast forward past the '90s. Let's talk about the year. I don't know. It was either 2001 or 2002. I'm not sure exactly which year it was. Um, at the time, I was working. No, I think it was maybe as early as 2000. I'm sorry. Whatever. But it's definitely the Wayback Machine. Back then, this was actually prior to me being a, quote, IT professional. This is back when I was still quite young, and I did pretty much any type of job that I could get. And at the time, um, I was a rent-a-cop of all things. I worked at a gigantic local manufacturer, Procter and Gamble. I worked at their healthcare research center in Mason, Ohio, which is in the basically north of Cincinnati. So that's where I worked. I was a, quote, rent-a-cop there, and I made friends with a janitor who worked there. He was, his name was Paul, and was interesting because back then I actually still had hair. So what I would do back then is I actually did try to grow it out a little bit, and I combed it back and all that. Typical rock look, for lack of a better term. And I remember seeing Paul, and I just remember him saying to me one day, "Hey, do you like metal?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And we just started talking about music, and the friendship kind of blossomed from there, and we just had a really good time talking and hanging out. And we started to hang out together pretty regularly. He was a cool guy. kind of shy, for sure. Uh, he was in a band, and I use that term very loosely, with his brother and some of their friends, I guess. And the band was awful, uh, really, really, really bad. Just imagine the worst local band you've ever heard in your life, and that's pretty much what they sounded like. Now, I tried to be kind, because he asked me, what I thought of their music, and I said that I didn't just straight up say you suck beyond belief, because that would have been just, I didn't have it in me to be that cruel at that time. So basically, I just said, yeah, you guys could play your instruments individually just fine, but you kind of need to work on playing together. Because, yeah, when it was bad. And they called their band Hate because they hated all of the pop music or whatever. There's been a bunch of bands named Hate, but that's what they decided to call themselves. I'm sure they've probably broken up by now, since it's almost 20 years have passed. But anyway, the main point is, by this time, I had gotten a CD player in the car that I was driving at the time. And so, and I was burning CDs on my computer. So I was like, well, I don't need these, I said to myself, well, I don't need these tapes anymore, right? These can go. So I ended up giving away my tape collection to Paul. And he was very grateful for it. I was like, no worries. Because by then I had rebought every single tape I owned. I had already rebought them on CD by this time period, right? So I had replaced all of my tapes with CDs. So I was like, don't need the tapes. And so I gave them to Paul, and all was well, right? Now, I have a couple of stories about Paul that are a little bit of fun. One that's particularly amusing to me that I'll tell you guys about, that you'll probably like. I was with my ex-wife at this time. I was still with my ex, and we went to a basement show that his band was putting on, and there was like, me and my ex-wife were there, and there was like, I don't know, a few other people. It was definitely not largely attended. I think there was maybe 5 to 10 people at most there, to see the band. And what was interesting, the really interesting part about the story is, the one of the people that was attending there was a woman who she got super drunk, and of course she was a big slut. And what was really funny is, at some point in the evening, she tried to make out with my ex-wife, which I thought, of course, I thought was pretty cool at the time, right? And then later in the evening, she actually got up on stage and stripped nude for all of us. So that was kind of nice. She wasn't bad to look at, by the way. So I wasn't too sad that this occurred. But that was that's pretty much all. Unfortunately, I don't have any wild stories about anything too crazy happening. But that stuff that I just said absolutely did happen, and it was fun. But that's pretty much all that happened with that story. And then, unfortunately, me and Paul stopped being friends because I think, I'm trying to remember why we stopped being friends. I think it was because it was either his brothers or his brother's friends or something. Basically, I somehow rubbed somebody the wrong way, right? I don't know if it was brothers or his brother, somebody. Like, for some reason, they got really pissed off at me. I don't know why. I was never really bad towards them. I don't know if they were jealous of me and him being friends or didn't want us. I don't know why, but basically, you know, there was a whole lot of fallout, and his brothers or whoever really ended up hating me for some reason, just hating my guts. I don't know why. And so Paul kind of followed their lead because, like I said, Paul was he was definitely just a follower, for lack of a better term. That was his personality type. So we stopped being friends, and whatever. I have no idea what the current status, what he's currently doing in his life. I haven't seen him for a really long time. So, yeah, that's the story of me getting rid of my cassette collection. Um, as far as how I feel, and for many years, it didn't bother me that I got rid of my cassette collection, right? It's only within the last couple of years that I've really been kicking myself for getting rid of that collection. I was like, man, I would have loved to have held on to those tapes and, listened to them more. But they're all long gone by this point, and I can tell you I'll never have a cassette collection like that again. So a bit of regret in getting rid of it because it'd been nice to keep it around just to listen to and enjoy. So that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have ever gotten rid of a collection and then later regretted it for one reason or another. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be music related, but I know it's going to be the most common response. If you had a bunch of cassettes, records, CDs, whatever, just throw it in the comments below. Say why. But again, it doesn't have to be limited to music. It can be a video game collection or other stuff. I mean, I got rid of some of video game stuff as a kid that I regret. I had a Game Boy and a bunch of games for it that I stupidly sold to GameStop or something for some low price because but I was a kid and I didn't know any better back then. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you like this, as always, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Live long and prosper.